Hey there, it's Tracy Kiernan, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint Halloween dogs with acrylics on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. This is a black canvas, so I like to take mess up paintings and just put a layer of black paint over it. I like to use apple barrel black paint to do this. It gives it that flat look. Not the satin apple barrel, but the flat one. And when you do satin paint, like the Liquitex Basics are satin colors, it kind of gives it the extra pop in the painting. So that's just like what I like to do. If you don't have apple barrel black paint, you can just use regular Mars Black Liquitex paint or whatever black paint you have available. Let's go over colors and brushes. There's 7 colors in this, and I'm using Liquitex Basics paint. So Cad Yellow Light, Deep Violet, Raw Sienna, Cad Orange Hue, Light Olive Green, Mars Black, and Titanium White. You are definitely welcome to substitute these colors, and like I said, use whatever colors you have available. I only used mostly the number 4 round brush. The only time you're going to need the flat brush is when you're painting your canvas black. But for the rest of the painting, it's all the number 4 round brush. So pretty much just one brush for this entire painting, which is kind of nice. I'll be using the white POSCA paint pen for the lettering, and if you have a black paint pen, that's also helpful for some of the other fine details in this tutorial. If you don't have paint pens, you can just use like a little fine detail brush in black and white. We'll be drawing with a white chalk pencil, and I recommend the pink eraser for erasing that. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So I already applied apple barrel black paint to my canvas and let it dry. I only needed 1 coat to cover up the mess up painting that was below it. And let that dry, and then we are going to draw our design out with the white chalk pencil. I recommend actually doing the lettering first. That way we can see how much room that we have to put the dogs versus if we did the dogs first, we may not have enough room for the lettering. So you can kind of decide which way you like. If you're not really sure what lettering you want to put up here, or if you don't want any lettering, you can just skip the lettering part. I'm just writing treats please. I'm doing this kind of swirly style font. I'm not really a lettering expert, so if you want to change the font to a different style, you're definitely welcome to do that. You're also welcome to change the quote to say something else, Happy Halloween or something different. Maybe you have dogs and you want to write the dogs' names on there or something like that. It's up to you. Sometimes it helps if you take your ruler. I tend to write crooked, so I'm placing this to kind of help me line my letters up. The placement of my ruler currently is at about 2.5 inches from the top edge of the canvas. So if that measurement helps you to kind of get your lettering placed so that we have enough room for the dogs, you can kind of measure that out. And this chalk will erase. I recommend actually using the pink eraser to erase it. So I actually kind of adjusted my word treats a little bit to be lined up more with the ruler. And after we get our words in, we can start sketching our dogs. I'm starting with Ghost Dog on the left, and I'm drawing a basic kind of ghost shape. Starting at the bottom, kind of curves, flutes out a little bit at the bottom. And then you want to draw the kind of folds and wrinkles in the fabric. So you do like this curved line and then a few vertical lines, and that kind of helps create that loose fabric-y look at the bottom. I'm getting a little bit creative here and doing like this loop part where it kind of curves and we can see the inside part of the fabric, but you don't have to. You can keep it simplified. You can just do curved lines at the bottom with little vertical marks that go up. You can even have a piece that kind of sticks out on the side. So this is just our preliminary sketch. This can and will be adjusted when we paint it in. Chalk lines will erase, and even if they don't erase all the way, we can always just paint over them black. I'm going to take a ruler and I want to divide the ghost in half. This is going to help when I create the eyes, mouth area, so I know where the center is. So I'll just draw a very light vertical line right down the center of the ghost dog. And then let's start sketching the nose. So it's the blanket or sheet has an opening for the eyes and the mouth area. So for the mouth, I'm going to do kind of an egg shape where the narrow part is at the top and it's wider at the bottom. So I'm using that center line to kind of make this symmetrical. So it's a little bit narrow at the top, wider at the bottom, and I can erase the center. And then in here we can see the mouth. So below that is the bottom of the mouth. We can see the nose, a kind of rounded triangular shape. I can actually bring this mouth down a little bit lower. And then bring this outwards a little bit. These chalk pencils do have erasers on them. Mine has been worn down considerably, but the erasers on the chalk pencils work. I just find the pink eraser actually works slightly better than the erasers on them, but you can decide what you like better. So for the eyes, I did two kind of oval shapes and they're going diagonally towards each other. The one thing I find with the eyes is they don't have to be perfectly symmetrical because they're just cut out pieces of a sheet. And then the ears, I'm doing a pointy ear dog. It's supposed to kind of represent a German Shepherd style dog. But if you want to change this to a different breed of dog, you're definitely welcome to do that if you want to do floppy ears or even no ears showing. So these ears are kind of perked. So I do kind of the little tiny triangle that's on the inner part is smaller, and then the outer triangle is like the inner part of the ear that we see. And then inside of the cutout, I'm going to do two circles so that those are his actual eyes. And he's going to be holding a pumpkin Halloween basket. If you want him to hold something else, you're welcome to do something else there. Little oval. So the handle goes to the mouth, and then the little oval at the top. And then we can sketch this into a pumpkin shape. So you're just drawing a very simple little kind of bucket shape. I'm not going to draw the face on the pumpkin. This entire pumpkin is actually going to be painted over when we paint the sheet in, but it's nice to kind of draw it to get the placement right, kind of get the idea of the design that we're working with. And so for pumpkins, I do like a center oval, and then I do these curved lines on the outer parts of the oval, so that kind of creates the pumpkin look. And then if you need to, you can kind of adjust your sheet. So I wanted this to kind of flute out a little bit more on the right. So I extended that outwards a little bit more. And then maybe a little bit more on the left. I decided I wanted feet for my dog and a tail. If you want to skip both of those things, you can if you want him to just not have feet showing. So I did just very, very basic little front feet that we can see under the sheet. If you want, you can draw his little paw, little curved lines for his toes, and a tail. So the tail is actually sticking out in the back over here. Since it's a German Shepherd style dog, it's got a fluffy tail. So just do this kind of curved triangular shape, and then the edges, little triangular edges where you can see the fur. If it's not a fluffy tail, it would just be a straight line. And then we're going to draw out our witch dog, which is going to be kind of a beagle style dog or basset hound. And let's start, this one's a little bit more challenging to draw than the ghost dog, I will admit, but we will get through this. We're going to start with the nose. It's same shaped nose as the dog on the left, and little triangular shape, and then do the little smile. So look at the placement of it. It's a little bit lower than the nose on the left because we want to keep a lot of space or enough space for it to fit in the cauldron, but also to have a witch hat. So we want to kind of lower it. So do the mouth, the little chin below it, and then bring those two curves up. So that is going to be kind of the center of its head, and then the little curve at the top of that is the top of his head, and two circles on the left and the right for the eyes. Those circles are a little bit bigger than the dog on the left. And then we can do its floppy ears that go down on the left side of his head and up, short little sketch marks. So these ears are flopping forwards and go up. If I didn't do that vertical line down the middle, that probably would have been helpful for symmetry. If you wanted to do a vertical line, you can definitely do that if that helps with your drawing. And bring this up a little bit higher. So there's the top of his head or her head. And then we can erase. It also doesn't have to be a beagle. It could be a different kind of dog. If you want to do a pointy ear dog, you can. And then we need to make it look like this dog is sitting in a cauldron. The nice thing about this is we don't have to draw a lot of the lower body. We just need to see his paws. So that makes it a little bit easier. So I did two kind of diagonal lines that go down from the mouth, and then two little curved lines for the paws. His paws are going to be on the rim of this cauldron container. And we can do his little paws, little kind of curved lines for the paws. Curves. So already we have a dog that looks like it's perched on something or inside of something. And then we can draw the container. So we need to have this kind of oval shape. So we did kind of this top rim of the cauldron, goes around the dog, and his paws are hanging on that. And then we can do the shape of this. So you may have found that you ran out of room on the bottom, so you may want to kind of shorten the height of the cauldron. But I'm just going to keep doing more sketch lines until this is rounded. Erase all my sketchy mess up lines. And then I do have enough room for the feet of this cauldron. So I'll do little notches at the bottom for the legs. Just adjusting. This top oval shape is a little bit awkward. But just keep in mind that the drawing is cartoon-like. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then these two little, those are the legs or feet I was talking about. Next, we want to draw the witch hat. So let's start sketching this out. The rim of the hat would have to overlap a part of the top of his head. So we can just kind of draw this line that goes across the top of his head and then curves around and behind the ears. So my hat's going to be kind of squished because of the placement of my word please, but we can work around that. So this is going to go up and then get very narrow right here. Maybe a little squished. So if I wanted to, I could actually push the word please up a little bit further or push up the A and the S. That I can work with. And we can erase the inner part of the hat. I'm just re-sketching that part. And then up here we can erase all of this. I can draw the belt on the hat so this line kind of goes across, a little buckle, a little square. I'm going to take this, kind of make it look like the point of the hat is kind of flopped forward, and maybe change the design of this. It goes up, it's kind of squished, and maybe have it point down. We're going to do one more thing to this drawing. I'm going to do a line on the bottom for the ground. So this is just kind of a curved line that goes across the bottom inch and a half of the painting. And that is it for the drawing. I am going to bump these letters up a little bit higher really quick. And I did mention this earlier. If you see how it doesn't completely lift off, you can always paint over any excess chalk lines that you'll see. And actually, we don't end up seeing these letters in the end because when I outline it, the lettering is thick enough to where it just kind of doesn't even show anymore. I'm pumping this up a little bit. And now we can start loading our paint palette with paint and start painting this in. We'll be using the number 4 round brush for the remainder of this painting. Actually, for the entire painting is done with the round brush. And we need the colors white, black, and raw sienna. Go ahead and mix raw sienna and white together about equal amounts. And that white is going to act as kind of a primer for that color because we're working on a black canvas. And we're going to paint the nose of the dog on the left first. So if I need to go outside of my lines, that's okay. I am going outside of these lines. We're going to do this part first before we do the white sheet around it. So just doing that sort of upside down egg, almost looks like a heart shape, an upside down heart shape. And then little chin. I actually added just a teeny bit more white into that color because I just wanted that piece to stand out from the other piece so that it doesn't just end up disappearing into that shape. I'm going to paint over the nose. Now just a teeny bit of black to my brush and actually go in here and do a little mouth shape. If your black isn't showing up, maybe because it's too wet right there, you can kind of let that dry and then add the little mouth later. And then I just kind of drag that black down a little bit lower in that chin area. And then the eyes, same color, that raw sienna and white mixed together. I did still have a teeny bit of black on my brush, so it looks a little bit darker, but that's okay. And this one, same thing. It's okay if we don't follow our drawing exactly. Then I'm going to paint the ears. So I'm going to do the outer part of the ear. That's a thicker triangle. This one is just a line. I am leaving the inner ear blank, so that's just going to stay black. And I'll use the black canvas to let that just stay that way. So ears, we'll add fur texture to this later. This is just the first coat of color. It's going to look flat, messy, sloppy at first, but then as we add more layers and detail in our painting, it'll all start coming together. So the tail, I'm going to just take my raw sienna. Raw sienna tends to be a pretty opaque color where it does show up on the black canvas, but if it's not for you, you can just add a little bit of white in there for whatever color you're using, and that helps get that to show up against the black background. So I did the tail and I just kind of dragged the fur texture outwards. And before this dries, I'm just going to add a little bit of white to my brush and go back over this. Create another layer of fur texture. So I'm just dragging my brush outwards from the center of that tail and just kind of releasing the pressure. Just kind of gives it that feathery, fluffy tail texture. And then the little feet. Just kind of same color with the raw sienna and the white. This leg, we kind of see it a little bit more. And a little bit of black. Maybe this part's a little bit shadowy because that blanket sheet will be covering the upper part. And then we can do the little toes with the black, just kind of loosely outline that shape. Little tiny paint strokes. I'm just blending that dark down into the paws. I'm going to do a little bit of black in his tail as well. So I'm just going to take this black. I don't want to add too much because then it'll make the tail too dark and not stand out at all. But just a few little black fur pieces on the tail. We're going to start adding some of our first layer to the beagle. So the beagle pretty much is the same color as the German Shepherd on the left. So I'm going to start with the floppy ears, and this is the raw sienna in white. And I'm just going to kind of outline the shape of the ear. Maybe add a little bit of black and have it be a little bit dark on the left side of the ear. And I'm just doing wet on wet blending, so it's kind of, he has like black markings on his ear, and it kind of blends to that sort of golden brown color. You want to be careful when blending black in because we're already working on a dark surface. You only want to add tiny amounts of it in there, or else you're going to lose the contrast of that color. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. It's brighter and more golden brown on the inner part, or the part that faces towards the face. And then it kind of blends darker on the right side. I'm going to grab more white and raw sienna on my brush and go around the eyes. So if you have too much black on your brush and you need to wipe it off or rinse it off, that's fine. We want this kind of light golden brown with white going around the eyes. I'm not going to paint over the eyes. I actually don't want to lose the shape of those circles. So I'm just going around them and going around that curvy nose area. This is all filled in. So the ears are showing up slightly darker. If they blend in too much, you can always kind of loosely outline the shape of the ear, and I will be outlining those too. Make sure they stand out. So I rinsed my brush off completely because now I want to work with white. His coloring kind of changes around the nose. The mouth area is white, and then he has a white sort of kind of stripe that goes up between the eyes. So I'm painting this. It's got a curve to kind of create cheeks of the dog. I'm going to go over the nose just like what I did with the other dog. This curves up. It almost looks like a dog bone shape. This goes up all the way to the top of the head area and kind of stops because we have that hat. A little bit showing above the eyes. And then I want to paint the bottom of his mouth. So I want to kind of change that color so that it doesn't disappear. I'm going to grab a little bit of this golden brown color and just kind of add that in there so that looks different. And then we are going to start painting in this area under his mouth, like his front chest area. And we're just going to kind of loosely outline this with curvy paint strokes. And then I want to add a little bit of black in here so this looks more gray because this part would be a little bit more shadowy. So we're doing these kind of curvy marks of gray blending with white, and it actually makes it look like the dog has wrinkles. His skin is wrinkly in that area, which is kind of works for Beagle or Basset Hound. And I'm going to go back and repaint the bottom part of his mouth. So again, a lot of this is going to be outlined later on so that it stands out. This is just our first layer. I'm going to do his paw. So paw is white. So I'm just going to kind of outline that shape and then fill that in white. So this white is brighter than the part under his mouth where it's more shadowy. Take a little bit of black. I'm just going to go in and just kind of darken right under his mouth. Give that a little bit more contrast under there. Go curving it. I'm going to outline this ear right here. So I just took black. If you need to rinse your brush and start over because there's too much paint on your brush, go ahead and do that. But I just grabbed my black without rinsing and I just loosely outlined that edge of the ears that are flopping over. So now those stand out a lot better. We're going to switch back over to Ghost Dog, and I'm going to have a clean brush and some fresh titanium white because we are going to paint the sheet that's draped over our dog. And still using the number 4 round brush. Grab your pure white and just start outlining the shape of the sheet. I'm not going to do the shadowy color yet. I'm just going to kind of define. So see these vertical lines and the curves? I'm outlining that with the white just to get the shape defined in there. We will be adding black into this to get that shading and shadowing. So just take the edge. So I have the bottom edge of the sheet kind of outlined. I'm going to take it up, outline the rest of this. If the brown eyes are dry, or if these shapes are dry, you can go around. You just don't want to have any of that brown kind of mix in with the white paint. I'm going to go around the nose area. and then go around the bottom part of the nose. So, bottom part of the mouth. I'm actually going to paint over my pumpkin. I found that it just made sense to paint over the pumpkin because we're going to have to paint the pumpkin white anyway, so we might as well just paint all of the sheet and then redo the pumpkin. When you get to filling in the bottom area, that's where you're going to kind of stop and start adding gray to your brush so that we can paint some of the shadowing. So without rinsing the brush, add just a teeny tiny bit of black to your brush. You only want little bits of black at a time. And then you want to blend this black going vertical. So your little vertical piece right there, blend that in with the white. If it's too dark, you want to add more white to your brush. So this should show up kind of like a medium gray color. So I'm taking this, I'm going to get more white on my brush here. And so this fold right here ended up being, oops, don't want too much dark right there. So this part's lighter and to the left of it is darker where that vertical part is. Right here, I'm going to take this curvy piece and that's going to be white. So I'm going to kind of change the direction of my paint stroke to kind of curve with that. And then blend this down. I'll take a little bit of black. So right here, this part's shadowy. I'm going to blend it up. If all else fails, you can just loosely blend in little gray vertical strokes along the bottom of the ghost sheet and just grab more white and blend more white in. Let's see how the darker lines kind of go vertical up. There's not a lot of dark at the top part of our sheet. This part curves a little bit. So I'm just taking white, kind of blending the white in. Gonna extend that down a bit over that paw. So the direction of the paint strokes kind of go in the direction of the sheet. So right here it kind of curves. That's my paint strokes are curving. Same with over here. It curves, and then where the sheet is kind of more straight, then your paint strokes are going more vertical. Just going back and kind of doing a second layer up here. Again, there's not shadow towards the top of the sheet, it's just at the bottom. It's going along the edges and making sure the edge of the sheet is smooth. Blending that dark, shadowy part in. We are going to next rinse the white off our brush, and we're going to work a little bit more on the nose of the ghost dog. And I'm going to be using black for this. So we drew this nose earlier, but ended up having to paint over it. So I'm just going to redo the mouth. So just re-outline that mouth area and then do our triangular shape that's kind of got the rounded points to it. And then fill it in solid black for now. I'm going to make the nose just a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to do solid black eyes. So I'm going to do 2 black circles. If you want to, you can use the ruler to kind of line up your circles. I'm also going to take my black and loosely outline kind of the edging on the bottom of our ghost dog. This is done very, very lightly using black right at the end of the bristles to get that very thin line. And if you want to, you can do that loose outlining with a black paint pen. And just a few touch-ups with the white. I'm going to loosely outline his toes. This kind of defines the shape a little bit better, but keep in mind it's a cartoon dog. It does not have to be detailed. You can also not do the feet. A little bit more shadow up there. I'm going to add a little bit more detail in the nose. This is completely optional. You can just leave the nose how it is or just add a simple highlight on the nose. I'm going to try to kind of give it a 3-dimensional look with this gray. And I already pretty sure I'm going to change this because of the contrast. So we can do this and then have like the black nostrils still showing, but I don't like how light that is. I'm actually just going to go back and repaint it so it's all just kind of like a dark gray color. Next, I'm going to start painting in the pumpkin bucket. So I'm going to start with black and do the little handles on the bucket. So they are going out from his mouth and down. And then the opening of our pumpkin bucket is kind of this ellipse shape, very dark gray. So do black and white to make dark gray. You can also just paint it solid black. So there's the opening of the pumpkin bucket. And because we already have a white background for this, we don't have to prime this shape. We can go straight to orange. So if it's a dark background, orange will not show up against the dark canvas and you have to paint a white background first. There's already white there, so we don't need to do that. So just plain orange. This is Cad Orange Hue. And then rinse the brush and use your round brush to start painting our pumpkin. So we can just like we drew this earlier, start by drawing the shape out with the orange paint. Pumpkin goes a little bit flat on the bottom. Don't worry about the bumps on the bottom of the pumpkin. We can add those later. And just fill it in, solid orange. Before this dries, I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush and start filling in, or start making this more of a pumpkin shape. So I took, remember how we drew that oval in the center? When we drew this, I'm going to just redraw that with the white. So that's going to give me a little bit more texture on the pumpkin so it doesn't look flat. So your curves are curving outwards depending on what side of the bucket you're painting. And it's just orange and white that are just kind of blending together to create that texture. And then you can go on the bottom of that and add the little bumps on the bottom to give it a little bit more form. Next, we're going to go back and add more detail work onto our witch dog, beagle dog, and I'm going to take my black and I'm going to do the nose. So same thing, we're just going to paint that black shape for the nose and also outline the mouth shape or the lines that are on the mouth. And then outline the chin. And then I'm going to do the paws. So I'm just going to outline these little kind of curved toe lines. And then I'm going to outline these two lines, that little line between his paws, and then I'm going to highlight. So this may not work if this isn't dry all the way, but we can go back and add a lighter highlight. I'm just doing a little white curved line on top of both of the noses. It gives it that shiny look. Next, we're going to paint the eyes in. So the beagle, we're going to do a gray base for his eyes. So I'm just going to mix a light gray, so white with just a little bit of black. In fact, if you want to just do white, you can. Basically, we're just painting the circle solid white. So we're going to do the eye one sort of detail at a time, starting with just the white circle, and we'll add more color and smaller circles onto that. So I'm using my ruler to kind of line that up. We're going to start painting the cauldron in next. So the challenge with this is it's black and it's on a black canvas. So how do we make it show up? We're going to utilize white to add a lot of highlights and lighter areas to this. And so I am taking black and white and just it's turning into like a gray color. So I'm outlining the rim of that first. And just using a balance of black and white so it shows up. I'm going to take my gray and I'm going to just start kind of outlining the edge of this. So when I load my brush, I'm loading it in black and white, utilizing that white to really kind of exaggerate the highlights of this cauldron so that it stands out. I'm just going to start filling this in kind of curvy paint strokes, and then in the center we can kind of just sort of scribble our paint strokes, but we want to give off the impression that it's rounded, so we got to make our paint strokes go rounded. And so adding that black in there and letting that kind of blend with the white. Also, because the background is a matte color, using the satin, it does help the black to show up against the black. I'm just going to take more of my white and outline the top rim, outline the edges. It's really effective if you take the white or light gray and outline mostly the edge. Not necessarily in the center, but the edges. And I'm actually on purpose making it a little bit brighter on the left side of the cauldron than it is on the right side. I'm going to use white to fill in the legs. And then adding more dark in there. I'm going to paint the inside opening of the cauldron black. And next we're going to start painting that hat. So this is deep violet. I'm going to do a purple witch hat. You're welcome to change the color of this. And still using the number 4 round brush, let's get this all rinsed off. And with this purple, you're going to need to add white into it because it's not a bright opaque color. So you want to mix a little bit of white into your purple. It doesn't matter the amount, maybe just a little bit more purple than white to start off with, so it's not super light in color. And we just want to start kind of outlining the shape of the hat. So I'm changing my hat design just a little bit from my drawing, having the points of the hat on the bottom kind of dip down a little bit more. And so this part that kind of goes behind the ears, that part needs to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a little bit more purple to my brush so that shows up a little bit darker. And that outline on the bottom of the hat shows up a little bit darker. So I'm just using purple and white to kind of fill this in. I'm making my paint strokes, so I'm outlining the edges, but the inner part, I'm curving those paint strokes to kind of go in the direction of the shape of the hat. So outline on the edges, curves in the middle. And it's okay if your purple and white kind of varies, so you can see how it gets dark and light in some areas. That is okay. That's wet on wet blending. So right here, I'm making that part that kind of bends a little bit. So right here is lighter, but then the pointed part of the hat that kind of bends down, that part goes a little bit darker. So to create dark, you add more purple, less white. To make it lighter, you add a little bit more white to the brush. Take a little bit more white, add this in here, just kind of blend it in so this part's a little bit lighter. Next, we are going to finish the detail in the eyes, assuming the gray circles are dry. Let's take a clean brush and raw sienna, and let's paint a circle inside of that gray circle. There should still be gray showing around, so we're not painting over the circle, we're just painting inside. So I'm going to make the eye just a little bit, see how this is a little bit higher in there. I'm going to do the same thing to the other dog. I'm going to do 2 brown circles inside of the circle, slightly going, it's not center, so slightly a little bit higher than center. And we need those brown circles to dry. I'm going to actually grab some black and do a little bit, kind of eyebrow above the dog, the beagle. This can barely be seen because the hat almost just covers it up. And then I want to take my black and do little dots on his cheeks, next to his nose where his whiskers would be. But I'm not actually going to paint the whiskers. If you want to do whiskers, you can. I didn't do dots on the dog on the left. Let's rinse our brush and let's add more detail work to our witch hat. I'm going to do the band and I'm going to paint that white. So you can, if you're going to do this like a different color, I still recommend painting it white first and then doing your color over it. This is just going in a kind of curved direction. And then I'm going to do a little bit more outline work on the cauldron with the white. So just on the like far edge over here on the left, some more outline. And then along the rim. Next, I'm going to add fur texture to the ears of the dog. So without rinsing the brush, I'm going to take my raw sienna and my white, and I'm going to go back over the ears and just create little tiny marks going outwards from the shape, and that's going to give him that fluffy ear look. Again, I'm leaving the center inner part of the ear black. And then I'm going to go and kind of touch up the toes of the dog. I'm going to do the pumpkin face next, and I'm going to actually be using this black POSCA Paint Pen. You can also use a black Sharpie for this, or you can use the round brush. It's just a really tiny area to be drawing these shapes in, or a tiny detail brush with black paint. I'm just going to be doing little triangle shapes for the eyes and nose, and then just draw out the mouth and fill it in solid black. And then if we need to, we can go back and kind of touch up the pumpkin, adding more of these rounded bump shapes on the bottom of the pumpkin. And with the white, I'm adding a few more kind of highlight curved lines in there, although you don't have to do that. If the brown on the eyes are dry, we can take our paint pen or paintbrush and do a tiny black circle inside of the brown circle. So these brown or black circles are actually a little bit kind of, this one on the left, it's towards the top. So it kind of makes it look like they're looking upwards, like they're begging for treats. So to get that, you kind of make your inner parts of the eyes closer towards the top to make it look like they're looking up. Let's do the highlights in the eyes, but I'm actually going to use the back of my paintbrush to make a little dot of white in. So this goes on the black circle towards the top. Next, I'm going to add light olive green to my paint palette and paint the ground area with the round brush. So I'm just going to apply this very kind of loosely. It does show up on the black canvas, so you don't have to do a bright background, but also I want to kind of make it look like there's shadow around the dogs. So as I'm applying this, I'm going to kind of leave the area under the cauldron and under the ghost dog blank, or that part has less green, but the parts that are around both of the dogs is a little bit brighter with more green. So just almost kind of dry brush style with this, just kind of letting it kind of scrape the surface of the canvas. It's not super solid, it's not opaque. Almost like sketch-like brush movements, and also it's going in a curved direction. Left and right, curved direction in the direction of that hill. So we could add a little bit of green under the dogs, but again, I want to make sure I'm leaving that dark. If we need to, we can go back and add more black to it. And next, I'm going to do all the fun stars in the backgrounds. It's a night painting, and that's a fun sort of design thing we can do around the sky. So the stars are Cad Yellow Light Hue, and I'm just going to take my brush, and I will do some twinkle stars in this, but for now I'm just doing kind of these like different sized dots that are kind of close together. Some are in clusters. If we want to make a twinkle star, we just take that circle and just kind of drag that paint up and down and then diagonal directions, and that creates a little diamond shaped star. So dot, drag your vertical and horizontal lines, and it creates that sort of diamond shape. So you really need a steady hand for that. If you have like a toothpick, you can try that, or even try it with like a yellow or white paint pen. I am going to be outlining the lettering next with the white paint pen, and you can actually use this paint pen to touch up parts of the ghost if you want to. The thing that I've found with this white paint pen is that it's not as opaque as titanium white. But the trick I found to make sure your white comes out nice and bright is to really to shake the pen to get it all mixed up, but also press down on it a couple times on a flat surface before you actually use it, so that that paint is all distributed to the point of the pen so that it comes out all nice and bright. You can also end up doing 2 coats of this if it doesn't show up bright. So shake, press down to make sure all that paint is nice and distributed to the point of the pen so that you have a nice bright flow of white. If you end up adjusting your letters and you see chalk lines, you can always erase those chalk lines later. So when this dries, I'm just going to take a pink eraser and go ahead and erase any leftover chalk lines on the entire painting. Just make sure you're not erasing where there's wet paint. The rest of this painting is final touch-ups. I am going to do something else to the witch hat. I'm going to take my yellow and do the little buckle, and then also I'll be using the orange to create little spiral designs on the purple. So like a little square with the yellow. And then I'm going to take the orange and do little patterns on the hat. This orange actually doesn't show up too well against the purple. So I'm just doing like these little spiral designs on the hat. However, they don't really show up a lot. So you can decide if you like that idea or not. You can do little dots or little stars on the hat, or just leave the hat purple. And then I'm going to take white and add some more highlight to the cauldron right here, just a big curvy bright highlight, and then another one over here in the lower right. And I'm going to take the black and outline the buckle on the hat. Outline the belt part as well. And if there's any other part of the hat that needs to be outlined, you can actually take this part where it folds and outline that. The other details I added to this off camera were adding a tail for the beagle. So the tail is basically the same color, the raw sienna, and instead of furry, it's just a straight line tail. I also added little leaves on the bottom, and so those are created using orange and white and yellow. So you just paint the shape of the leaf, and then you can use a black paint pen to do the stems and the veins. And then I outlined the outer part of the leaves with the white paint pen, and that helped them to stand out a little bit better. The other little detail I added were motion lines by the tail. Those are those little white, light colored lines that you see, curved lines by the tails to make it look like the tails are wagging. But that is it. This is the conclusion of how to paint Halloween dogs. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching and thanks for painting with me.